So I don't know, maybe Newcastle are one of them, but there are question marks over the application of Anthony Martial, whether he's got the right attitude to be going into a relegation battle, because he has had, let's be honest, his head down, his slumped shoulders, bad body language, if you like, during his time at Manchester United when he hasn't played.
Well,
Yeah, no,
sorry, Mickey.
sorry.
I'd question if he went to Newcastle. I'd question anybody right now who went to Newcastle. No disrespect to Newcastle. Listen, I've loved playing at Newcastle. I think it's a fantastic football club. But I think they're down. I think they're relegated. So why would you be going there? The only reason you're going there, if you're an international footballer, because you've got the World Cup around the corner, the only reason you'll be going there is because of money. That is for sure. So that's my personal opinion. There's 19 games left, and even as you said, once they play today, Newcastle, there'll be 19 games left. And even if it's a low total that you've talked about, that's 32 points. That means they've got 19 games to get 22 points. They've played 19 games. They've got 10 points already.
Yeah, it's right. And I think that's a big worry for the stars that Newcastle are going to try and attract in January, is they're going to look at their situation and they're probably thinking to themselves, yes, I'll play. I'll be playing every single week. I'll get 19 Premier League football matches under my belt. But do I want to be playing Championship football next season? Because that's the case. Or you might get a player, and this is why you shouldn't sign these players. You might get a player and his agent going to the club, if we're talking about Newcastle, and saying, well, I'll tell you what, I will sign for you, but if we get relegated, I want a get out clause. That's the big problem that Newcastle are going to have. The figures are not a problem. They can pay whatever they want. The wages, we all know, they're the richest club in the world now with the new owners, and they want to try and attract top players if they possibly can. But I don't think that people like Martial are going to want to play Championship football and whatever players that they're going to try and bring in that January window. That's why it's such a hard window.
What do you think about Paul Pogba's future? His contract's up at the end of the season. Manchester United could get offers for him as early as next week, in the next few days, in fact. Will they get any, or do you think he will eventually sign a new deal?
I think his time's up, Hugh. We've said it too many times now. Different managers have came through the door at Manchester United. They've all given him opportunities. And I think you can count on two hands probably how many good games he's had for Manchester United, or influenced for that price tag and the talent that he's got at his disposal. There's no questioning his ability. He's got that ability. But the way that Ralph Rangnick wants his team to play with his 4-2-2-2 system and the way he wants them to work, I just don't see Paul Pogba fitting into that Manchester
Here's
United.
the difficulty, though, is because they're getting rid of Paul Pogba, possibly because Ralph Rangnick doesn't want him, but he's only there himself until the end of the season as manager, and then a new manager might come in who might want Paul Pogba.
But hang on a minute. Let's rewind this now, right? How come Paul Pogba is outstanding for the French national team? I actually, when the manager's job was up for grabs, before the last manager went in, I said, why didn't they go for Deschamps? Because obviously Deschamps can get the best out of Pogba. But you know what happens is, you look at the way Pogba plays for the French national team. They've got Kante in the middle of the park who does two men's run. They allow him the freedom of the park. It's never been right at Manchester United. We're talking about this before. The midfield has never been right. I agree with you, Mickey. He's been very inconsistent, but I think he's a talented player. He's still only 26. He's won everything in the game already. He's a talented player. I just don't think the makeup in that side has been right for him to play his best football.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say, Kante, I completely agree with that. And that's the type of player that Manchester United have been missing over the last, 3-4 seasons. We've been crying out for them to go and get a holding midfield player. There's talk of Declan Rice and there's talk of other players coming in alongside if you were going to keep Paul Pogba. And if you can do that, and Ralph Rangnick's thinking about that, and look, you've got to talk about the manager that's in charge now, Hugh. You can't speculate and think, well, there's going to be a new manager. They've still got business to do in that January window, whether it's players staying or whether there's players going to go. They're a part of Manchester United. Now, Paul Pogba has picked up a lot of injuries over the last couple of seasons. That's another factor that you've got to take into consideration as well. How many games are you going to get out of Paul Pogba? The transfer fee, if he does let that contract run out, he could walk away from Manchester United for a second time, not a first, a second time, for free. And Manchester United spent a lot of money on Paul Pogba. And I think for value for money, over the time he's been at Manchester United, I don't think you've got that value for money.
I totally agree with you on that, but I think he's a talented player. And what I keep going back to, I think in the time that him and Kante have played together for the French national team, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they've only been beaten once.
Who've played together?
Every time Kante and Pogba have played together in the French national team, they've only been beaten once, I think. So it's having the balance of it's like, to be honest with you, I see some clubs when they're signing players, and it's like when you're doing designing your living room, you don't go and buy a dining table that doesn't match
chairs,
do you know what I mean? And this is the clubs just go and say, right, I'll go and sign this player. So if you're going to go and sign a Paul Pogba, where are you going to play him? How do you want him to play? Knowing what his best position, knowing where he plays. I mean, at Juventus they used to play 3 centre backs, 5 in the midfield. Pogba used to play on the left hand side. Right, so in the French national team, he's allowed much more of a freer role, plays a little bit deeper. But you've got to get players in that blend together to enable to get the best out of him. I'm a big Paul Pogba fan, and I think it'd be a huge mistake for Manchester United to let him go. But I do agree with Mickey that he's not being consistent, and he's shown us glimpses of his ability, but for the money he's bought for, he's not been valued for money.